April the 2nd this year it was when we first joined you on a Thursday night, or night for me at any rate, for Cocktails and Conversations. We thought it might just be 1 week, and here we are. We are September 17th. We're back from a 2-week break. We're on episode 21. We've had over 40 guests, just as fun, fruity, and intoxicating as the cocktails mixed by our resident mixologist, Mark Tubridy. And I've been with you alongside Britney Eurton for all of that time. Guys, how are you doing? Great to have you back.
What a beautiful monologue. It was almost perfect, Nick. Almost perfect.
Yeah. I stumble on Mixologist myself sometimes. I've gotten everything from Mixologist to, I don't even know, mixed upologist.
How is my favorite Mexicologist? What have you been up to these last 2 weeks?
You know, it's been a kind of a nice breather. Taking a little some family time. Right after our last show, though, I felt very fortunate to be a part of a special charity event for this wonderful foundation, Second Stride, which really seeks to provide permanent homes and really second lives for racehorses after they finish their racing careers. So I felt very, very fortunate to be a part of that. I think you may have mentioned, Nick, that it was pretty similar to this format. It was just me geeking out about cocktails, maybe just a different audience. So it seemed fresh and new to them. But other than that, I've been spending some great time. I visited my parents in Connecticut this past, actually really a couple of days ago. So just came back today.
How wonderful. How are they?
Yeah. They are excellent. You know, they're just like your parents. They're big fans of the show. They watch every single week. And I don't know if this is a good time to bring it up, but my mom and my dad, we joked that he was the sponsor because he paid for it. But my mom was the creative force. She created this beautiful poster with a little picture of every title that we've had. I don't know if you can see that from every single show in the first season. And as every loving mom will do, she featured my name right in the middle. But it's a beautiful testament to everything that we've done so far. And, you know, as of tonight, we'll start working on the poster for season 2. So really beautiful. So thank you, Mom. Thanks, Dad.
That is wild just to look at. I mean, you mention it, but you're really seeing it there.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
It's great that your mum correctly identified who the star of this show really is. She chose to make a poster with 20 images of me on.
You're in there. It's small, but you know.
21 images of Mark, though, because he's got the additional one right in the middle.
Exactly. Which, you know, I thought about that tonight is our 21st episode. So I'm thinking about 21 Club, missing it. You know, we were talking about updates. September 30th, indoor dining is going to resume in New York City at 25%. 21 is not going to jump at that opportunity yet. They may wait until 50%. And from what I understand, I think a lot of restaurants are going to be weighing that decision themselves as far as whether or not it makes fiscal sense. But, you know, it's a step in the right direction, and we're thankful for that.
Definitely. I mean, that is some positive news. You know, out here in LA, we're still only outdoor dining. And honestly, I have no idea when we'll open back up again. So it's good to hear some sort of progress in New York. And hopefully we can all convene at the 21 Club eventually, whether that be end of this year, next year, whenever Nick Luck can be let back into the country, any of those things.
I'm convinced you'll keep me out as long as you possibly can. Champing at the bit to get back in. I mean, there is some hope, I think. There is some hope in the next few weeks. I mean, the real issue here is, well, we've had outdoor dining and indoor dining in London for some time. And actually, the government had an initiative here, Eat Out to Help Out, which was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You were getting significant discounts from your meal to try and stimulate the restaurant trade. And it did work. It worked very well. The issue now is that sort of lockdown measures look as though they're creeping back in. We've now got a rule of 6, so you can't meet up in groups of more than 6 anywhere, and that includes indoors in family. So we're a family of 5, for example. We can't have more than one person around here. So it does look as though because the R rate's going up, we're edging towards something approximating like a second lockdown. So, you know, I just hope that people can carry on with their lives as well as they possibly can and continue to earn and continue to function. Yeah, even taking the measures that we all need to keep everybody safe. So it just shows everybody's got their own sort of challenges to deal with. But wherever you are in the world, wherever you are watching this, we hope you're safe and well. And we're just going to keep coming at you with these cocktails and conversations, whether you like it or not. And the fact that you may well be under enforced incarceration at home it only serves to increase our viewing figures. So, every cloud has a silver lining as far as we're concerned.
I love it. Keep watching, keep tuning in. We'll keep bringing the conversation, and Mark will keep bringing those cocktails. Speaking of, what's on the menu tonight, Mark?
So we're going to be doing a really cool variation. I mentioned to you guys, the Manhattan is my favorite drink, but we're going to be doing a really cool variation. And we talk about new classics. I was surprised when I looked up the history on this one. It dates back to 2015, all the way back,
Wow.
But it's a great variation. It uses Amaro instead of sweet vermouth. We're going to talk all about bitters, whether that's Amaro, aromatic bitters, the bitterness of Nick Luck. We're going to cover it all. It's going to be fantastic.
Oh, he's coming into season 2 spicy. I like it.
Here's the thing. You sort of spent the entirety of the first season pretending to like me or tolerate me. The pretense, the artifice has now completely disappeared, and we're just straight with pure bile.
No, but it's good. I love you, Nick.
Britney, you're looking very well. Have you been away?
I have been away. It's been a busy couple of weeks. Well, 2 weeks ago, I was in Kentucky, of course, for the Derby, which is worth recapping in and of itself. Completely empty Churchill Downs. Anyone that's been to Churchill Downs for the Kentucky Derby knows what that energy is like. 150,000 people. You have the horses, the connections on the walkover. It was so eerie to be there without any fans. I'm so happy that the race was able to take place, and Authentic was sensational. Everything that transpired before and after was very 2020-esque, pretty par for the course. But it was, Nick, you've seen big race days without any spectators. It is very, very strange. And I think Churchill Downs would be unlike any other race course, because on Derby Day, you're so used to that fanfare. And so we tried to recreate it as best as we could while not trying to do too much on the broadcast. But it was odd. I don't think there's any other way to describe it than that.
Listen, I would have given anything to be there. But in all honesty, from a viewing point of view, the best place to be watching that was in the comfort of your own home, allowing NBC to bring it alive as best possible. And you guys did an amazing job, as I knew would be the case. But it did have some extraordinarily poignant moments. That single bugler with my old Kentucky home to an empty grandstand. I know that courted quite a bit of controversy, but it was quite moving.
Mm-hmm. And it was, I think, for the connections, I was lucky enough to be associated with one of the runners. My dad had one, and just in speaking with them, in those owners, they had never been to the Kentucky Derby before, so they didn't really have anything to compare it to. But they said just to be a part of it, even in such an odd year, the race run in September was still quite magical and quite special for them. So I'm glad that they could, and all connections could experience that moment. I think one of our viewers just said, Julie Engel, she said that she has a part of Authentic. So I think that there was so much in the Authentic. There's so much that you could look back on from this 2020 Derby, whether it be B. Wayne Hughes getting his very first Kentucky Derby winner, who has spent 50 years dreaming of it. You talk about My Racehorse bringing new owners into the game and getting that Derby victory. Bob Baffert getting his 6th. And how about after the Kentucky Derby, when they were getting set to take the photo? I think we actually have a photo of this thanks to Cody Photography. Authentic was not having those flowers or the ribbon attached to the flowers, and he wanted to take out everybody that was standing next to him. I'd never seen anything like it. You can laugh slightly afterwards knowing that nobody was hurt, but that is Eric Gustafsson, who is the president of Spendthrift Farm in the blue suit on the ground. Bob Baffert, you can see making sure his wife, Jill Baffert, out of the way as he runs out of the way. The entire scene was unlike anything you've seen before. Par for the course 2020.
Unbelievable. You have seen nothing like it at all. And of course, that going with the stable mate of the winner being scratched beforehand and breaking Bob's assistant Jimmy Barnes' wrist. How's he getting on, Britt?
He had surgery. I believe they had to put 9 screws into his wrist, but recovering. This just goes to show, and Bob was very emotional about the fact that Jimmy wasn't there with him to celebrate the victory, because anybody that knows Bob Baffert knows Jimmy Barnes and what an asset he is to the Baffert barn. And so he was in the ambulance on the way to the hospital as the Kentucky Derby was being run. He came to the barn the next morning. He actually got his surgery back in California. He was at the barn the next morning to celebrate and enjoy with everybody. But from what I hear, he's doing good. So we'll have to get him on the show one of these days to talk about that moment.
We got a question from Carol Baczynski. Brittany, there looked like there were some people in the stands for the Derby. Were those people part of the backstretch, or were they locals?
So the only people that were allowed actually on site were those associated with the racehorse. So each connection was allotted, I believe, 8 tickets for the Derby. There were obviously other races throughout the afternoon. Owners could attend for that. And each horse was allowed 4 people to accompany the horse. So that's usually trainer, assistant trainer, and perhaps 2 grooms. Obviously, the jockeys were there. Jockeys' wives were allowed to come, but that's pretty much it. If you were not media personnel that was given an actual pass to attend or associated with a horse running on that day, unfortunately, you weren't able to come. Hopefully that will change down the road, but I think that they had to make that last minute decision and chose what they felt to be right, considering the circumstances.
Excellent. We are racing in part in front of sparse crowds in Britain, made mainly up of owners, really. And in Ireland, they're just going to start to introduce owners next week, which is a step in the right direction. And we've got some crowd trials here at the back end of next week as well at Newmarket, which are going ahead.
Did something happen recently where spectators were allowed, and then one day after they were allowed, that had to be rescinded?
Yeah, exactly. So Doncaster St Leger meeting, 4 days. First day, crowd trials as part of government pilot scheme. They happened the first day. They got 1,000 odd people in, maybe more. I think maybe 2,000. And then they were going to up it to 3,000, 5,000, 6,000 for the rest of the week. And then the government were backing the trial going ahead, even though the legislation was changing. National legislation was changing. But then the local public health authority, local division of Public Health England, then pulled it because they said they weren't happy with the infection rate rising. So, yeah, you can see what these racetracks have got to contend with. They're not just contending with national government, they contend anyway. We won't get into the politics here.
It's a lot. Well, hey, Mark and I got to catch up on our past 2 weeks. Nick, how have you been? How is the family? How's your Racing Post article? I mean, you're just getting massive.
Well, the Racing Post article was very sweet. Lee Mottershead, who wrote it, definitely made me sound like a much nicer human being than you guys know is the truth, especially Mark.
No. It was very well written, and I thought that you were. For those that haven't read it, can they go to Racing Post to check out the full article? Because I just thought it was so raw and honest. Your assessment of what's transpired in your career.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed doing it. It was probably some sort of cathartic experience. So if you can find it, it is available on the internet somewhere, I think. What else has happened in my life? Well, I have a new addition to the family. If you just
can we see?
Wait 1 second. I'll just go ahead.
Puppy?
Yes.
Oh,
yes. I love show and tell on this show.
That probably explains the facial hair. He's getting up in the middle of the night.
True. Potty training.
Here he is.
Oh, he's adorable.
Okay.
What's his name, Nick?
He's more than a handbag dog. This is Mac. He's a miniature schnauzer, but they're not actually that miniature. So he's only 11 weeks old. And he'll actually get to like sort of a nice medium size when he's fully grown.
Yeah. But he seems very, very calm.
I've ordered his 5th-generation pedigree, being the kind of geek that I am. So, he's pretty cool. He's pretty good, to be honest.
Wow.
How is he adjusted to the family life? How are the girls with him?
Nearly house trained. Yeah, 2 of my girls like him. The other one, take him or leave him. But
let me guess, Xanthi, the youngest.
The youngest loves him. Yeah, no, she's great. My eldest, not. She take him or leave him. Take him, but I can take him or take him. To be honest, I'm not sure I wanted you, but I'm happy you're here now.
I think our viewership will go up if Max stays on the screen. I think throughout the show.
I feel like a Bond villain now.
No, you need like the white creepy cat for that. Like the Siamese cat.
The hairless ones. Yeah, exactly.
Nick, you had some sensational racing this weekend overseas. Give us a recap of who we saw, who disappointed, who upset.
Well, I tell you who won't be disappointed, and we will introduce him in just a few moments' time, but our guest this week will not be disappointed, President and CEO of Breeders' Cup, Drew Fleming, because the race in Ireland, the Irish Champions Stakes, we expected Gayaf, who's got the highest rating of any horse in the world at the moment, to win. He didn't. He was beaten by Magical, who, of course, was second in that epic Breeders' Cup turf 2 years ago to Enable. She's now a 5-year-old mare. She's running 18 Grade 1 races. Won 7 of them, and I think she's been second to Enable another 5 times. So that shows you how illustrious her career is. If she rolls up at the Breeders' Cup turf, no obvious reason why she shouldn't. And there's a rematch between her and Gayaf. I think that would be one of the great races. It's probably more than we can ask for, but that would be fantastic. There's a whole glut of 2-year-olds that we might see at Breeders' Cup, I think, that did well over Irish Champions weekend. I loved a horse of Jessica Harrington's called Cadillac. They've already suggested he might turn up. A very close friend of mine, John Quinn, who's trained the odd little bit of a horse that I've had in training with now for 10, 12 years. I'm so thrilled because it looks like he might have his first Breeders' Cup runners this year. Safe Voyage won the Boomerang Mile. He'd be a candidate for the mile. And his little filly, Keep Busy, who Michael Tabor owns, she was second in the Group 1 Flying 5, so she might come too. So there's lots of interesting horses. I think the St. Ledger winner might even come. Galileo Chrome, who confusing me with that kind of mashup is by Australia. So there you go.
That is very confusing.
There's loads and loads to look forward to.
Well, especially if we can get all of those Euro Breeders' Cup runners over here. And that's something that we have to look forward to and talk to CEO Drew Fleming about in just a bit. But we would be remiss, as you were mentioning, the big weekend that you had overseas, to not mention the passing of someone that was described as class matched only by courage. I really loved that. Emma Berry of the TDN described the late Pat Smullen as that, who passed away a few days ago after losing his battle to cancer. And Nick, I just wanted to give you the opportunity for those that might not know him to describe this incredible man, a champion jockey, but some say just an even better person.
Well, so many people who knew Pat better than me have paid great tribute to him. And I can only echo the words of Dermot Weld, who you will be very familiar with because he's trained so many winners in North America and everywhere around the world. Pat was his stable jockey for 20 years. And in this day and age, that's so unusual. And he said the 2 things that characterized him were loyalty and integrity. Yeah, he was somebody who, if you met him on a day-to-day basis, you just knew straight away he was a good guy. Yeah, there was no doubt about that. But he was both ordinary and extraordinary. And that marriage of the ordinary, humble, unassuming person off the horse and the passionate, driven, committed tactician on a horse was quite striking. But it was what he then did after his career. Pancreatic cancer forced his retirement 3 years ago. Not that long after he'd won the Derby, his great ambition on Harzand. But a year later, he was forced out of the saddle by the worst cancer you can have. And the way that he not only pushed back the disease, which he did the first time, but also strove to raise an enormous amount of awareness and funds in order that he would make other people's lives who were then suffering better through the money that he raised for Cancer Trials Ireland was nothing short of extraordinary. And the way that he was able to allow people into his life at an incredibly difficult time personally and physically to enable that to happen was extremely courageous. So he was a wonderful, wonderful man who has left a massive, massive impact. And clearly his wife and family will be devastated at the moment, but they are right to be incredibly proud of what he achieved. He was a wonderful ambassador for the sport, and only 43, a life cut tragically short.
I love this quote that I read from that article from Pat. It said, "I might not have done anything brilliant, but I think I was consistent the whole way through. I think that's very important in a stables jockey's job, and that's what I loved being, the stable jockey." You can just hear how humble he was in that statement. So our thoughts go out to his entire family, those that loved him, those that were fans of him. As you mentioned, a man lost far too soon. I wish I would have known him. He just hearing all of the wonderful remarks on Twitter, paying tribute to him were just remarkable. He seemed like a wonderful man.
Yeah, and that's right. And he was stable jockey to a grade 1 stable. But you would speak to any of the people he rode horses for, even if they were a bit further down the chain, they always said that on that day, on that horse, in the paddock, after the race, he was making you feel like the most important person in the world, and that horse was the most important horse at that given time. And actually, I looked on Rafe Beckett, who trained the Breeders' Cup marathon winner Mahanak in 2008 at Santa Anita on the pro ride. He said that he gave a great story about Pat's ride on that horse, and they had no idea what they were doing, taking him there. It was a bit of a shot in the dark. He had to mount on the track because the horse was difficult in the paddock, and there were all sorts of circumstances that made this an incredibly unlikely win. But he gave the horse a great ride, and it takes a proper worldie to be able to adapt to any surface, any racetrack, anywhere in the world, ride against the best and be respected amongst his peers wherever they go. Very few have done it. Ryan Moore, Frankie Dettori, to name but two. But Pat definitely garnered the respect of jockeys across the world. And this was a great ride. I'm glad he could get a Breeders' Cup winner. I'm glad he could get a Derby winner at Epsom as well. And as I say, he was a true professional.
Well, to this, cheers to Pat. Class matched only by courage. Our thoughts and condolences again go out to the family and all who loved him. With that, we'll honor that Breeders' Cup Marathon victory by bringing in the CEO of Breeders' Cup. That is Drew Fleming. We have lots to unpack, lots to talk about with you. First and foremost, thank you for joining us.
No, thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it.
You are in Kentucky, I'm guessing. Beautiful photos in the backdrop.
Yeah, this is my home. One's a picture that Charlie Church painted over in France, and the other one's just a random painting. So, but yeah, that's my home. That's my wife. She does the decorating.
It's a beautiful background either way.
Yeah, I love it.
All credit to her. I buy the TV, she buys the furniture. So
Drew, I hear you on that, Drew.
You're winning in more ways than one this week because although and it wasn't unexpected, we won't get to have fans at Breeders' Cup, and that's reflected across pretty much every big race anywhere in the world at the moment. You made a couple of really important announcements, and I know the people of Central Kentucky, of which you are one, but I know people of Central Kentucky will be thrilled that Keeneland has got a Breeders' Cup with fans in 2022 to look forward to.
Well, Nick, it only seemed like the right decision. That was a very, very easy decision. Obviously, we're very sad and disappointed that we won't have fans at the Breeders' Cup this year, but returning to Keeneland as soon as we could was only fair to the local communities, Central Kentucky breeders, and all those fans that purchased tickets so that they can see the Breeders' Cup at Keeneland in 2022 in its full glory. So, yeah, we're very, very excited about that.
How disappointing of a decision was that for you? Because many tracks and big race days had waited as long as they possibly could to make that decision. How difficult of a decision was it for you and the entire team?
Well, I mean, it was the right decision. So I wouldn't say it was a very difficult one, but it was one that we spent a lot of time analyzing and thinking about and consulting with government officials, with health officials, with Keeneland. And so we did all of our diligence, and ultimately the safety of our fans always comes first and foremost. And so while we're very, very disappointed in it, it was the right thing to do.
And was the decision to come back to Keeneland in 2022 pretty part and parcel with spectators not being able to come this year?
Well, Keeneland's are always a great venue. I think many people said in 2015 it was one of their favorite Breeders' Cups. So that certainly added to it. But again, it was a very easy decision, unanimous by our board, that if we couldn't show the Breeders' Cup in its full glory to fans at the racetrack, we wanted to do it as soon as we could back in 2022.
And just looking ahead to preparations for this year's event, Drew, we spoke about this a little earlier in the week, but are you pretty confident that all these international horses that we've been talking about that are so integral to the event can come and can be accompanied by the horsemen and grooms?
Yeah, we're very confident. We've been working on this for many months, just the situations like this that you prepare for the unknown. And when the United States shut down the border to certain countries back in, I think, May or June, President Trump 2 weeks later gave an exception for major sporting events. And the Breeders' Cup certainly is a major sporting event. And so we've been working very closely with the Department of Homeland Security for many months, and are very confident we'll not only have the horses, but the essential staff and personnel with them. So anything can change, obviously, but we've had great dialogue. We've been given the green light, and so we look forward to having all the best horses in the world come to the Breeders' Cup this year.
We talk about how the international participation has just really grown year in and year out. Was it challenging keeping that interest from the international participation this year at a high like it has been in the past?
So, I mean, it is the Breeders' Cup. It is the World Championships. And the international participation is one of the things that makes the Breeders' Cup so special, where it's finally decided at the end of the year who are the best horses. And so that's obviously something that we've been working very much forward to. Ed Sackville over in London, Josh Christian, Kate Hunter in Japan, and the entire racing team. We've had great dialogue with trainers and owners during this COVID, while we couldn't meet with them in person, Skype, Zoom, telephone, and we're very confident we're going to have really strong fields.
And the £31 million in $31 million, I should say, in purses, maintaining those 2019 levels, Drew. How were you able to do that?
It's remarkable.
Well, I mean, despite not having any ticket revenue this year, our nominators have been the backbone of the Breeders' Cup since the very beginning, and they have funded us from day one and are extreme supporters of ours. So in times like this, when we can support them, it's the right thing to do. And we wanted to send a message of strength to the thoroughbred industry, while certain other races were having to decrease purses for other reasons. Because we were in a position of strength and were able to do so, we felt it was the right decision, again, to show how strong our industry is.
And this might be news to both Nick and I, but I know that you've been working very closely with your partners in NBC to bring that unique experience of Keeneland 2020 to those at home. Can you give us any sort of insight as to what that might look like or how those conversations are going?
Well, I was with several of the NBC team yesterday at Keeneland, walking the grounds, talking about all the various camera angle viewing spots. So we're very disappointed that we can't have fans, but we know we need to make the fans immersed in the Breeders' Cup like they were there. So you'll see some innovation and technology like we've never done before. There'll be many, many different camera views. We're planning to have a virtual reality 360-degree camera in the saddling ring so that you can see these horses like you are there. And really immerse yourself. You can't be there because of COVID. You'll be there in your living room.
I love that. Isn't that what 2020 has really been about? Enjoying these things from home.
Now that is tremendous news, and the show will go on. The show will go on with the best horses in the world, God willing, and we will do our endeavor to do our very best to bring the show alive for everybody watching on. And it's not too far away now. And there's another great weekend, Britney, which we ought to mention coming up very soon. NBC and TVG collaborating, as you have been during the course of the year, both networks that you're involved with at Woodbine.
Really looking forward to that. Yeah, we just had a meeting yesterday talking about the 2 NBC SN shows that will be on Saturday and Sunday. The Woodbine Mile, which is a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Mile, is a really sensational race. For those that are familiar with the Kentucky Derby last year and the controversy, War of Will, your Preakness winner, and also won a grade 1 on the turf. He's running and your morning line favorite in the Woodbine Mile. So we look forward to that. Then we see the 2-year-olds on Sunday in the Natalma and the Summer Stakes. And so these races have been so strong and prominent in terms of horses that run well or win in the Breeders' Cup. So really looking forward to bringing everybody that on NBCSN. I want to get the times right, so give me a moment. Saturday, 5 Eastern, Sunday, 4 Eastern.
Okay, we're gonna
just you allowed me that promo.
We got. We're going to take a drink in a moment, and then after that, we're going to find out a bit more about the man who's the president and CEO of Breeders' Cup, Drew Fleming. But Drew, first of all, we've got a few questions and observations from 1 or 2 of our regulars. Julie says, so happy Breeders' Cup will be back in Keeneland in 2022. Holly Sturgeon says, so psyched for Del Mar next year. Cool as ever, as I'm sure you are. Randy Carter, can't wait for the Breeders' Cup this year with everything going on. So happy there will be one. Already got my T-shirt. And this is the most important point of all. Robert says, what does Drew think about the success of cocktails and conversations? No pressure, Drew, because you'll be back with it.
Credits to our team and you guys and Peter Rotundo. And when COVID hit and we were all stuck at home trying to figure out what we could do, and everybody was watching television, our team was very creative and said, let's interact with our fans, our patrons, and let's see how they're doing. And so this has been a great success. And I want to thank everybody on this show, both on camera and behind camera, for all your efforts. And it's definitely gone on, it's very much appreciated. So thanks again. And we're going to continue it. I think you guys did such a great job. Like, why not? This is fun.
It's never stopping. It's never going to stop.
Drew, I don't know if you knew this, but episode 1, we wrap it up, and Nick's like, all right, we'll see you for the next 10 weeks. And then 10 turned to 20.
I've been on for 21 weeks. I finally got on, so you guys are popular.
the oldest trick in the TV playbook. But Gord, just before we get a trick with Mark, Gord says, and this is an important question this year. What is it that keeps you up at nights regarding this year's Breeders' Cup? What is uppermost in Drew Fleming's mind right now?
Well, I mean, we've got such a good team, and Keeneland's such great partners. Despite the unknown, which I think we all try to worry about, we're very confident. And I'm not saying we're cocky and confident. I think that we've been doing our work. Everybody's been planning. And so it's going to be a great Breeders' Cup.
I did have one question because we wanted to get all the business out of the way, and then we could have some fun and really get to know Drew Fleming outside of CEO of Breeders' Cup. David K asked on Twitter, he said, why is the Breeders' Cup always held on U.S. soil when the races are comprised of both international and U.S.-based thoroughbreds? I know it was held in Canada, but what is the thought about keeping it in America?
Well, I mean, I think what COVID's probably taught us, everything's on the table. And so, I mean, it's been great racing here. We've had great success, but there's probably some merits to his point. And I mean, we're always looking at different ideas. And so, I think, again, nothing's off the table at this point.
I did have one more question. This one might be a little bit more fun for you. Aiden Butler has asked, who's your favorite track operator?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot of really good track operators. Aiden's definitely up there. But I mean, my old boss, Craig Fravel, was great to me for 5 years. And at one point we got in a car and drove from Lexington, Kentucky, all the way to Del Mar, California, 3 days. You get to know a guy, great guy. And, shout out to Craig.
Drew, I mean,
and now they work together.
Yeah. I mean, would you say Aiden's kind of nosed into the top 5, 6, 10? I mean, would he get in the 10 now?
So Aiden? Oh yeah. He's definitely up there. Yeah, he's throwing on me. I haven't known him as much as Craig, but no, he's a really top man. He's done a great job at Santa Anita, and we still talk. We've become friends. So we talk routinely. I think hats off to Aiden. He's one of the best.
Personal question, just because I'm curious about this. Has there ever been a thought to keep Breeders' Cup at one venue, say Santa Anita, because the weather's amazing? Or do you feel that it needs to constantly move to keep things more of a level playing field?
I'm of the personal opinion that it's nice that we're in many different locations, because we get to visit all of our many loyal fans from right now around the United States. And I mean, what's really humbling is we constantly get lobbied to have Breeders' Cups in various parts of the United States. And I think it's really cool to get in a town that we've never been in before, like when we were in Del Mar a couple of years ago, and just taken back by the level of pride that the locals have in their town, showcase, American racing and these racetracks at their finest. And then what's great when you can then add in all the internationals. So it's such a great mix, and it's difficult from an operations standpoint, but it's
sure.
Nice and lively, and it's fun.
If you are watching and you would like to nominate your favorite Breeders' Cup venue, then just put it in the comments section, and we'll tot them up by the end of the show. or a venue that Breeders' Cup has never been held at before, where you would dearly love it to go, but you have to show you're working. It's no good just getting the right answer on this show. You have to show you're working, which is exactly what Mark Tubridy does every time. He doesn't just produce the drink, he shows you how to do it.
He gives us everything.
I got to say, that's the best segue ever, though.
That was.
Well, first,
Nick Luck, ladies and gentlemen.
Anyone would think we were paid to do this.
I have to make up for the bitterness comment earlier. But guys, first, Drew, I want to take this opportunity to thank you because, you know, you mentioned ways of kind of keeping Breeders' Cup, you know, active and reaching out to the audience. And this has been such a great experience. I know for me and for all of us to interact with the fans. And for me as a bartender that currently has no bar, this has been a great way to stay sharp. So thank you for that ongoing opportunity. I look forward to, like Nick said, more and more episodes to come.
No, we thank you enough, and look forward to seeing you in New York sometime soon.
Absolutely. So guys, our first drink tonight is called, I'm calling it the Manhattan Noir, but essentially what this is a take on, or really essentially what's called a Black Manhattan. So this is, we talk about new classic cocktails. I brought this up earlier. Usually new classics, we're talking 80s, 90s, something like that. But when I looked up this recipe, this is back from 2015. So this is just 5 years ago. It was created by a gentleman by the name of Todd Smith at a bar called Bourbon and Branch in San Francisco. And he did one very simple thing. He took the classic Manhattan recipe and he substituted Amaro for this sweet vermouth. So traditionally he did Averna Amaro. We'll talk about that. There are all sorts of types. So it seems like a simple substitution. How much of a difference could that really make? But there's actually a huge effect that this simple swap of the Amaro for the sweet vermouth has on the flavor profile. So let's talk a little bit about what those things are. So sweet vermouth and Amaro essentially have a very similar process because what you're doing is you're starting with a base alcohol and you're infusing that with bitter barks, roots, and herbs. And then you strain
bark?
Barks, yeah. So like cinchona bark, which is what goes into Angostura bitters. Some roots like gentian roots. I go to a store here in the city and they have all this stuff and you would think you were in Diagon Alley in Harry Potter. They have wormwood, they've got Hogwarts, like all these different things. It's really fascinating.
You are speaking my language.
Are you a Harry Potter fan?
Oh, wait, can I take a moment to show and tell? It was my birthday last week and this was one of my birthday presents from Alexis Garsky.
Wow.
Wait for it. Wait.
So you I like it.
That is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
That is awesome.
Very cool.
They threw me a Harry Potter party. It was the coolest thing ever.
It's so cool. Actually, one of these days, maybe when we get to Halloween, maybe I'll try to do a butterbeer recipe or something like that. Right?
What are you, Brittany? Are you a Ravenclaw or a Griffin? Are you a Slytherin?
Definitely a Gryffindor. I think when I took the quiz, I was Gryffindor/Slytherin. I'm sure my friends would call me a Hufflepuff, which nobody wants to be called. Anyways, that's a completely separate episode.
Okay, I'm going to get back to the cocktail in a minute, but while we're on the Harry Potter subject, when the first movie was in theaters, my friends were all going to see it. I was, I think I was in middle school, 7th or 8th grade. And they told me to dress up as one of the characters, and I hadn't read the book. So they told me I most looked like Ron Weasley. And so they had me, I dyed my hair orange for the day and went as a Ron Weasley. And I don't know if that's a compliment or not. Ron's
You're
cool,
such a
but
good sport.
I try. But all right, so getting back to our vermouth and our bitters, it is this kind of similar process. You're starting with your alcohol, you're infusing it with the bitter barks, roots, and herbs and different citrus peels, and you strain that mixture out, and then you sweeten it. So that happens in both Amaro and vermouth. And some could even say that vermouth is a type of Amaro. The thing is that vermouth always has wine as a base, and that's important. So that gives it some sort of acidity, some brightness. And also vermouth is not typically aggressively bitter. It's a moderate bitterness. And it also caps off at 22% ABV. So it never really gets past that kind of aperitif sort of liqueur. Amaro, on the other hand, oftentimes or usually uses grain alcohol as the base, so a stronger base to begin with. It has a more assertive bitterness, or it can have a pretty strong bitterness, and it can go all the way up to 40% by volume. So what happens here, that simple switch of putting the Amaro in for the sweet vermouth in a Manhattan changes the flavor profile, and now it's a little bit darker, a little bit more brooding, a little bit more intense, and that's why it's perfect for the fall. So very simple 3-ingredient cocktail. We're going to get started. We are going to start with our Angostura bitters. Now, in the original recipe, he actually splits it between orange bitters and Angostura bitters, 2 different types. But this brings up a good point. So what's the difference between this type of bitter, which we're going to do 2 dashes into our mixing glass? What's the difference between this and the Amaro? Because as we've spoken about in the past, this type of bitters is also that same process, infusing that alcohol with the herbs and sweetening it slightly. Here's the main thing. This is referred to as non-potable, meaning you wouldn't want to pour this in a glass and drink it straight, and this would be potable. So there's a very important distinction when it comes to liquor stores and grocery stores. You may notice that you've never seen a bottle of dashable bitters like this in a liquor store. That's because it's referred to as non-potable. Whereas in a liquor store, you will see things like this, which is a slightly less concentrated version, which is the Amaro. And this you can buy in a liquor store. So it's sort of kind of interesting how we have those different versions of essentially the same process. Now,
potable and non-potable.
Potable.
It doesn't roll off the tongue for a horse name. I don't know.
So I took a shot at Nick earlier with the bitterness comment. I'm going to backpedal now because this is it's not just bitter. It's complex. It's sweet at the same time. I love Amaro. And if you haven't had it before, you got to try it. Even if it's just with a little espresso after a big meal, this is a beautiful digestif. It's great for your digestion. So this is absolutely a fantastic cocktail ingredient to start using in your drink. So we're going to do 1 ounce of Amaro.
Complex and sweet, Nick.
Complex and sweet.
I'm going with that.
See, I felt bad at the beginning.
I love the idea of the digestif, which is supposed to sort of settle your stomach and make you feel better.
Yeah.
But if you have 17 of them, it
defeats the purpose. Yeah.
I'm a big Calvados fan.
You're a Calvados? Yeah.
Nice. That's a great after dinner drink as well. Absolutely.
A what fan?
Calvados. It's like a French apple brandy. It's actually used in a lot of very classic cocktails. There's this great drink, the Corpse Reviver No. 2, which is very popular, but the predecessor to that, the Corpse Reviver No. 1, uses Calvados. It is a brandy because it's made from fruit, but as Drew will tell you, it has that beautiful note of apple on the back end. So again, apple brandy, apple jack, but Calvados is in that realm. That's the high end. So definitely worth a try. So real quick, Nick just mentioned that if you had an upset stomach, maybe it's good to have some type of bitters. Have you ever gone to a bar and or maybe you see someone, they have an upset stomach, the bartender gives them bitters and soda. The reason why that helps to settle the stomach, and I only know this because I have made bitters in my house, so I see these ingredients that I was talking about from that grocery store. Each and every bark and root and herb that you add into bitters has something on the label that says this is good for A, B, and C as far as medicinal uses, whether it's anti-inflammatory, good for digestion, good for your kidneys, whatever it may be. And that's the whole thing. Bitters were medicine before they were used in cocktails. So first and foremost, when we trace it back to its origin, this is medicine. So that's why you may see people doing that with soda. And I don't want to go on too long here, but I will tell you that I lost a bet one time because someone told me they had a surefire cure for the hiccups. And what it was a lemon wedge soaked in sugar and doused in bitters. And sure enough, it worked. The guy had horrible hiccups and it was gone just by biting on that lemon. So all sorts of things. So guys, we're going to finish this up. We're going to do 2 ounces of our Maker's Mark bourbon here. Again, very
Mark,
simple
you've made
recipe.
my mom a massive bourbon fan. She ordered an old fashioned the other night when we were in Kentucky. Thanks to you.
Awesome. So I know you tagged me in the one post. Were you guys drinking old fashions? That almost looked like sangria that I saw.
No. So when we went on vacation, we went to a cocktail class, and because my parents really love making them now, thanks to you. Yeah, and awesome. It was fun being there. My mom asked for something along the lines of a French 75.
Okay, I love that.
What you made on the show. So now she's a gin fan. She's a bourbon fan. Her palate has expanded thanks to you.
That's awesome. And I know you weren't a huge fan of bourbon when we started either, but how are you on it now? Still no.
The Cold Rush is still my favorite drink that you've made.
Fantastic. I love that drink. And such an easy variation on a sour. I was thinking, I haven't even run this by our producers yet, but one thing that we can do leading into season 2 and the holidays is start exploring some things like how to build a proper punch. If you're entertaining guests, we can talk about pre-bottled cocktails, all sorts of fun things, because I think now a lot of our viewers have the foundation for this cocktail knowledge, and now we can scale it up into fun ways that you can entertain whatever family and friends you can have over at this point, which, you know, I know is not many.
We have to do a cocktails and conversations cocktail book.
You know, we've been talking about that.
We've been talking about this, Drew. Like a hardbound book.
I'm going to jump on it. Because I know all these recipes we have down. Yeah.
I'll go back to charity. It would be great.
Yeah.
And get all of the guests like special signed copies, and they could all sign it in there. I mean, the possibilities are endless.
I think it's a great idea. So I think we got to absolutely commit ourselves to it at this point. So guys, I know I haven't been explaining here, but I added some ice. This is a stirred cocktail, going back to when we were talking about when you stir and when you shake. Again, when you have all spirit ingredients and things that have like densities that are easily going to meld together, that's something that we can stir. And when we start introducing juice and cream, and we really need to emulsify those ingredients and introduce aeration, that's when we're going to shake. But this is just like the regular Manhattan, a classic example of a stirred cocktail. We want it to be silky smooth, beautifully cold, nicely diluted. And we're just going to garnish it with a cherry.
Say hello to our producer.
So I got
That's beautiful.
While you're doing this, I got a good story for you, because he won't be watching, I can tell. I just noticed. Look at that.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys. So that's our Manhattan Noir.
That's gorgeous.
Oh, that is absolutely beautiful.
Ooh, really nice. Great for the fall. Great for the winter.
I was just going to say, because one of our producers she just popped in there, Caitlin, for just to say hi, except she never said hi. Earlier in the week, my wife was on a year 2 parents seminar at school, and so, you know, the teachers are giving out, you know, what the kids are going to do this year, and and they obviously say to all the parents, like, can you please mute and turn your video off on your Zoom? So all the parents have muted and turned their videos off, apart from one parent who's working out in his garage. think American Beauty a little bit, and
wow,
he's working out in his garage, and he's a fuller figured gentleman with his top off, and the entire school community is able to see him working out. The teachers again. So I'm glad that's all he was doing. That's all I can say.
Yes.
And luckily, you know, he won't be seen anywhere in a school in the next few weeks with the social distancing measures in place. So anyway, just thought I'd divert there.
I love that.
Something funny, the massive racing fan, and he watches this show every week.
Mark made us a delicious cocktail there. Drew, what is your cocktail of choice? What do you have? I'm
drinking right now a Tito's and tonic.
Nice.
So we're starting to get into the Maker's Mark season. It's getting a little bit cooler. I normally the Maker's Mark mid-fall.
Yep.
So there's a temperature outside that it needs to hit for you to switch.
Yeah, I mean, I love bourbon, horse racing, football. Summer, Tito's and tonic and golf. So.
Yeah, I've got so regular customers at the 21 Club that will drink maybe a Manhattan all through fall and winter, and the first warm day they'll switch to something like a Southside or something simple like a vodka and tonic. So yeah, I think there's something to be said for the seasons and the drinks that we like to have during those seasons. And actually, when we get to our second cocktail, I'm going to talk about the use of spices and things like that and how that kind of comes to play. So yeah.
Hey, Drew, just tell us, how did the Drew Fleming journey to the top of horse racing begin? Where did it all start?
Well, I mean, I've grown up in Lexington and did not come into a horse racing family. My mother was an elementary school teacher. My father was a tax lawyer. And my best friend in the world, a guy named Gatewood Bell, his family was in the horse business for several generations. And I think it's probably a sin in Kentucky to not be, particularly Lexington, to not be in Keeneland until you were in the 6th grade. But I got the invite to go out to Keeneland and was just mesmerized. And I think I was just hooked then. And then in a couple summers, I worked under a great guy, lives in New York right now, used to run the National Stud in Newmarket, Brian O'Rourke.
Yeah, I know Brian well.
Brian worked for a farm in central Kentucky called Wimbledon Farm. And I had the greatest job of just mowing and weed eating for a couple summers. and working my way up the ranks, and then went on to college and law school and was a corporate lawyer, and started doing some equine work being in Kentucky with buying and selling horse farms, syndicating horses, forming racing partnerships, and just love the game, love the people. I mean, with racing, you love racing, and then you develop lasting friendships for life. And I think that's such a unique thing about our business, to where you can go to any racetrack and you know someone, and you've talked to them about racing because you share that common passion. And in doing that, I mean, 5 years ago, if you asked me if I'd be sitting here with you guys today, I would have lost that bet. But had a really nice Christmas lunch with Craig, and I thought it was going to be a boozy Christmas kind of celebration lunch. And instead he said, I want you to quit practicing law and come work for me full time. Because I'm not promising you any job, but I'm promising you the Harvard education of the thoroughbred industry. And so I had a great practice, but took a leap of faith with him, and work in the best company in the world. We have the best team, and from executive vice presidents all the way down. And so it's just people that are so dedicated, and they wake up every morning to figure out what we can do, what's best for the horse and what's best for racing. And it's just I've been very lucky and very blessed, and glad to be here.
So what was your first Breeders' Cup? Not working, but attending, or was it one and the same?
It was 2011 Churchill.
That was my first Breeders' Cup too. It was cold. So what? Hey, does it feel like it's come a little full circle for you, going, to Keeneland for the first time all those years ago, and then now having, Breeders' Cup Keeneland that you're so fully invested in?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, and Shannon Arvin, who's the president-elect of Keeneland, we were actually colleagues. She's one of my best friends. We probably talk every couple of days, and it's somewhat of a homecoming for me. But again, I like traveling. I like being in California. I like being all over. So Keeneland's special. But I think again, the beauty about the Breeders' Cup is there's so many special places we can have it.
And like Drew, you had a very successful career before you transitioned into horse racing full time, but now obviously it's a career that comes with quite a lot of media profile, a little bit more added pressure. How do you cope with that, and does it marry up well with family life?
Well, I mean, I've got a great family. They're very, very supportive. My wife keeps me in line. She is a federal prosecutor, and she's very much the best. I don't mess with her. But I also have a wonderful son who's 5 years old. His name's Hootie, and he loves racing, loves the nays, as he calls them. And so we love to go out to the track and just go casual, kind of hang out and enjoy life. But couldn't have asked for anything better, and it's been a great time.
I mean, I made the big mistake of handing over. I mean, we're always told, aren't we, Britney? If there's one rule when you're on air, you never, ever hand your microphone to anybody.
Nope. I have witnessed when Nick gave the mic up once, and it was not a pretty sight afterwards, or a pretty conversation. But you gave it up to this cute little man. I don't blame you.
There's only two people I've given that mic up to. The first was Belinda Stronach, and the second was Hootie. And I know which one got me in more trouble, and it wasn't this one.
Yeah, he was in race 5 of the pick 6, and he didn't cash the ticket, and you can see how upset he is. So,
who's his little friend he's got with him?
Well, that was part of a class project where we got a stuffed animal for a week, and we had to take different pictures of him, his different journeys. This was one of the pictures that I think, unbeknownst to my wife, we submitted to his class to show his weekly adventure.
Like no one else is holding a mic with an NBC mic flag, are they? When they've got that bear to take home.
No, that was a cool day. I really, really do appreciate that.
Oh, wait, Drew, you talk about your. Sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, is he fully immersed? Drew, is it total immersion? Is it in the genes now?
Oh, he loves it, and I've been really good friends with the trainer Wesley Ward for probably 15 years, and still go to the backside with Wesley, and we'll bring Hootie. And Wesley will try and put him on a 2 or 3 year old and just say, let him check it out. We're not there yet. But I mean, he loves it. And he's got a great group of friends who a lot of their parents work in the business. And they all, enjoy the nays. So if we're cheering, they're cheering.
Good man.
You mentioned Wesley Ward. He was a guest on here. He gave us a wonderful tour via, the computer screen in his phone of the barn. But what is this story about Wesley Ward and stealing a car?
You've done your background work. I'm impressed. In this, let me know.
Hang on, just before we start, this could be the shortest tenure. This could be the shortest presidency of Breeders' Cup in it.
Weird things happened during COVID. You never know. So, no, it was, and that's a really good point, Nick. This was before anything related to the Breeders' Cup when I was a lawyer.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer, exactly. Gatewood Bell, when I was, I think I'd been practicing law maybe 3 or 4 months, was living at a friend's house, didn't have any overhead or expenses. And Gatewood said, "Hey, I'm going to buy a racehorse. What do you think about it?" And I think at that time he was trying to figure out if I had any clients that would want to be in on the racehorse. And I said, yeah, I'm in. He goes, no, not you. I said, no, I'm in. So took, I think, 3 months salary and put it all on a racehorse, much to my parents' surprise. And had a great time with this racehorse named Nina Fever, and parlayed her into a horse and a couple other horses. And one of these horses was running at Kentucky Downs during the Keeneland September sale. So about this time a couple years ago. And Wesley said, "Do you want to go down for the day?" I said, "Well, Wesley, it's a sale. We got a lot going on." And he says, "Yeah, I'm going to charter a plane. If I charter the plane, will you go with me?" And of course, that piqued my interest. I said, "Yeah, I'm in." We took this little twin engine down to Portland, Tennessee. I said, "Wesley, I've set everything up. Racing secretary is going to leave a car for us." Great. So we drive in, really nice guy from Seattle, Washington, Dave Moad, who's been in the business for a long time. 3 of us land, car in the parking lot, keys in it, drive to the race. Our horse, I think, came in second. Dave's might have won. Great day. We start driving back to the airport, and Wesley goes, "Counselor, need to tell you something." I said, "Yeah, Wesley, everything all right?" He goes, "Well, went to thank the racing secretary for leaving a car for us." And he turned bright red in the face. And he said, "Wesley, I'm so sorry, I forgot." "Well, Wesley, whose car are we in?" "I have no idea." So we took the car across state lines, drove it right back to the airport. We're going to beg forgiveness. Filled it up with gas, left it, and thank you to this day, whoever let us borrow your car. We owe you one.
Oh, wow.
My God.
That's everybody. Everybody that's been in racing has a story, probably not like that, but somewhat similar, of a really good experience.
Is it
That's
true?
what racing does.
Yeah.
Is it true that you'd been paid as a lawyer for 3 months and did the whole lot on a piece of a racehorse?
Yeah, Nina Fever. It was fantastic.
And that was Nina Fever.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And that was that's how much you wanted to get a slice of the action.
Oh, it was great. And I mean, this doesn't normally happen, but Nina Fever did really, really well. And then the next year we took that money and bought a horse named Gypsy Robin. And she won 2 grade 2s. And, that was it. The rest has been awesome. So, I take absolutely no credit for that other than begging my friend to let me in. So he was a very good friend, and the rest is history.
So when did Conte Partiro come into the fray? Because you had a piece of her before she left, or do you still?
No, she's owned by another group now, but the success of Gatewood and that group is carried on to where they formed a syndicate called Hat Creek. And again, I had to ask my friend, "Can you please let me in?" And he's, "Sure." And so Conte Partiro won the Sandrine Hammett Ascot a couple years ago. And that was an awesome experience. Bye, Scat Daddy, time to say goodbye. And so super cool day. I was actually I had dinner the night before with John Miller, with NBC Sports, and John said, what do you think about this horse? Well, John, I said, we don't fly a horse over to England if we don't have a shot. And so John made a bet. We all celebrated in the car park afterwards. And I actually had a small painting of Conte Protero painted that I put in my office. And so when I got the call a couple of weeks ago that she's looking at coming to the Breeders' Cup from Australia, obviously had great owners, SF Bloodstock, Tom Ryan, Gavin Murphy, and trained by Gay Waterhouse. I was like floored. I was like, wow. And so we're hoping that she comes back to Breeders' Cup, and it'd be awesome.
That's so special. I mean, she won quite comfortably there. Were you guys going absolutely nuts watching her come down the stretch?
It was quite a day. It was one of the best. Yeah, that's a photo of us, celebrating, and it was funny. Like several years ago, when we had a horse run, I think 3 of us went over and we had to throw money in to get one hotel room, and we would rotate sleeping on the hotel floor. To then 5 years later have a winner at Ascot. It was great.
It was a wonderful day, wonderful moment, and she's an amazing mare, because I think I don't know many horses who've there's horses who've won top class races on 3 continents, but to have been trained in 3 different based in 3 different continents and won graded stakes races, that takes a bit of doing. She's done incredibly well. Yeah,
well, and I take no credit for that. Just letting them, tag along, letting me tag along. But fantastic horse. Tom and Gavin and Gay, they've done really great things, and really proud to sell her to someone like that team. And so when they made the call saying we're thinking about coming back, it was awesome. And I don't even think Tom knew that I had the painting in my office. And I think it was the first painting I ever run. I said, Tom, you got to check this out. And so it was a really, really special moment.
And it's got to be so enjoyable winning with friends, sharing that moment with a bunch of your closest friends. You mentioned Gatewood Bell, you've known him for so long, and Wesley Ward, a longtime, friend of yours and trainer of that horse. I mean, you see the racing world kind of evolving into this, where you see more syndicates, more people all joining together to enjoy it. I mean, could you describe what the excitement that it is to share with your friends and like a moment like that, and perhaps why that could be the wave of the future for racing here in the States?
Oh, I mean, getting to celebrate anyone is great, but when you get to have your friends there, like, all the better. I mean, I still remember the car ride back from the car park at Ascot into downtown London. There were 3 of us. It was Gatewood Bell and a friend of ours named Chris Young.
This wasn't a stolen car, was it?
Sorry?
This wasn't a stolen car.
No. But the poor taxi driver.
You're now known as Drew Fleming, car thief.
But I took the car back, so we're good. But rolled all the windows down and put on repeat Conte Protero by Andre Bocelli, and shared a bottle of champagne. And I think by the end of the hour drive back, the taxi cab driver said, "Do you sure you want to keep hearing this song?" We said, "Yes."
It's moments like that are unforgettable, and what makes this industry and this sport just really, really special. Speaking of special, I think we have a special drink coming up from Mark Tubridy. Avant-garde.
Avant-garde. I know this one seems weird.
I love the name.
Thank you. This is actually an original. I'll get to that in a second. But I just wanted to say, when we go into fall, this is when I get really, I'm always really excited about cocktails, and I love crafting new drinks. But I love the season of fall because there's so much that we can do with different ingredients. So summertime, springtime, we've got fresh produce and fruit and herbs, which is fantastic. But you guys have seen we can express all of those flavors just by muddling that in the cocktail shaker. But we can't do that with things like autumnal spices, like cinnamon, star anise, and clove. We have to coax those flavors out. And if you're not making some sort of homemade syrup, the best thing you can do is search for ingredients that already have those flavors in there. I sound like a broken record here, but again, bitters and Amaro, one of the key ingredients to that, I said roots and herbs and spices. A lot of that is exactly what I'm talking about. Cinnamon, star anise, all those very warm spices that we think of, just like Drew was talking about, kind of his, cold weather drinks. That's what we think of when we head into the fall season. So that's exactly what we're going to capitalize on today in our avant-garde cocktail. So this is a drink that I actually came up with at the 21 Club about 3 years ago. Only difference is that originally it had tequila. So as we build the ingredients, you're going to see some things kind of lend themselves to tequila. But that kind of, it goes to show one of the things that I love doing with cocktails is take a format and sub something else in and see how it works. And in this case, Tito's works beautifully because it's this clean canvas. So all of these nuanced flavors that we get from the bitters and apple cider and agave nectar, they're all going to shine that much more brightly because they're not competing with that underlying spirit. But they also work well with tequila if you have a bottle at home. But we're going to go ahead and start building this cocktail. I always tell you guys, start with the least expensive ingredients first when you're building the drink. So just in case you make a mistake, you're not throwing out the expensive stuff. And believe it or not, bitters are actually, when you think about the price per ounce, on the cheaper side. Because yes, this may run you sometimes as much as $20 or $25 per bottle, but we're adding things in dashes. So it's not a lot of volume that we're adding. That being said, I will recommend that if you're just getting into bitters and you want to try some different varieties, different styles, Fee Brothers is a great brand to start with because each bottle, this is one of their bottles right here, Fee Brothers, it costs about $10 per bottle. This one is a little more expensive because it's barrel aged, but you can get kind of a variety pack and try their cranberry bitters, rhubarb bitters, celery bitters, all these different flavors that you can play around with.
You what, Mark, after that bit of product placement, you're never paying $10 a bottle for that again.
I would hope so, right? Hashtag Fee Brothers.
Right.
But great way to start off. I'm going to sing the praises of bitters. I definitely want you guys to get excited about them because here's the beautiful thing about it. I was just saying, if I go to make a drink on the fly and I say, you know what would be great in this is cinnamon, but I can't do anything with a cinnamon stick, really. I mean, apart from maybe smoking it or something like that. But one thing I can do is look at a bottle of bitters that I know features that flavor. And now with a couple dashes, I'm transforming the drink instantly because I know that that flavor is already infused into this. So that's kind of my point about using ingredients that feature spices. You want to know what your spirits, your liqueurs, and your bitters, what flavors are predominant because it's so easy for you to incorporate that into your drinks and instantly change the whole thing. So we're going to start off, again, 2 dashes of bitters right into our cocktail shaker. So now these
special way of holding it too.
Yeah, I like to kind of do this underhand grip. And the cool thing about that, I'm going to do this in a different shaker so it's not going to mess up our drink. You get a very clean kind of 1-2. So watch, because you're using gravity here. 1, 2. So that's kind of using gravity to make sure that you get a clean cut there. Good observation. Always keeping me on my toes. I'm telling you.
Well, yeah, I mean, you are so detailed in, your description and the stories and everything that I now notice all these little things because you kind of pinpoint different things that you do.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. You also know that if I'm doing it, there's probably a long story behind why I'm doing it. All right. So we're going to move on to some fresh lime juice here. We're going to add 3/4 of an ounce. I always say, use your fresh citrus juices. For those of you that really have been watching since the beginning of season 1, you know that that's because of oxidation. You want to make sure that you're keeping the freshness of that citrus juice. So as close as possible to when you're going to be making your cocktail is when you want to squeeze those juices. So here we go. This is a great simple substitution as far as a sweetener. So oftentimes we use simple syrup, which is a great sweetener, right? It balances out our acid, but ultimately it's just sugar. So using something like agave nectar is going to balance out our acid. It's going to sweeten our cocktail, but it's also going to give us some nuance. So this is something that you can start to think about when you start experimenting, making your own cocktails. Again, substitute things. You could try a whiskey sour, try it with agave nectar. What's the worst that happens? I mean, it's still going to be good. It's just going to be a little different. So that experimentation is a great thing.
Did Nick go to get his agave nectar or the puppy? I'm hoping it's a puppy.
Yeah. I was going to say he'd be behind on the cocktail already. But let's see.
Oh, pouring more drink.
Oh, there you go. Keeping it easy. All right. So we've got our bitters, we've got our citrus, we've got our sweetener. Now this is the fun with fall. There's so many great ingredients. Apple cider. I love to use this in punches and cocktails. Not to be confused with the apple juice. Of course, apple juice is a little more processed. It's just thinner in taste. It's not bad, but it's not going to add the same complexity that you're going to get from apple cider. So fresh apple cider, we're going to do 1.5 ounces. This is why I love fall cocktails. I never know. So, Drew, I never know what Nick is laughing about until after the show is finished.
Well, no, it was there.
That was the comment.
It was there on the screen. It was there on the screen. Aiden Butler maybe start the shows later. I keep getting drunk while I'm at work. If you're 3 p.m. like Britney and Aiden are,
yeah,
Drew's in kind of the perfect, and Mark are in kind of the perfect sweet spot for cocktail hour, and I'm just kind of like.
Yeah, sometimes we gotta keep them awake.
Yeah. We got to circle back to our espresso martini one of these weeks. We'll do a twist on that.
That was a great recipe. That was really good. So.
Awesome. You know, actually, since we did that presentation, my wife ended up having that. Sometimes I tell you, she reaches on screen and she'll take the cocktail. She fell in love with espresso martinis. So now if we have, 1 or 2 people over and it gets to that 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock time after brunch and everybody's full, sometimes she'll ask me to do a round of espresso martinis. Everybody gets their second win, and next thing you know, we're playing Pictionary.
Keeps everybody
DoorDash or Uber Eats.
awake for the afternoon.
Something like that. No, actually, Drew, my wife is a great cook, which I'm enjoying and also suffering from in quarantine, because below this line is my quarantine 15 that you can't see. So this is well placed. But no, she's a great cook. So occasionally we'll do a big brunch. All right, we're going to finish.
Maybe we need to do a cocktail and food pairing, and that's when we introduce your wife to everybody.
And it's so funny you said that, because that's another thing that I was thinking about going into this second season. That would be really, really fun. A cocktail, that pairs specifically well with a certain hors d'oeuvre. Again, it is kind of an entertaining season. I know we can't do that as much, but it's still great to know that. It's not just wine and hors d'oeuvres that go well together. Certain cocktails are great with that also. So we're going to go ahead and add 2 ounces of our Tito's. All right. And this is a shaken cocktail. We do know that we've got our juice in there. We want to emulsify this all together. And remember, another reason why we shake is to get that aeration. It's going to change the texture of the cocktail, which is definitely beneficial for something like this. Not so much for a Manhattan, because you want to keep that silky smooth, but this one is kind of nice to have that little froth on top, and it just changes the whole feel of the cocktail.
Nick, for the shake, you should list off the Breeders' Cup venues.
Yeah.
Well, hang on. Let's just see how we're getting on here.
I meant where it's actually been at, but yeah, we can name off where people want it to be at.
Oh, where it's actually been at. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where it's been at.
All right. I need a workout. Here we go.
Give me one sec. Hang on.
Gotcha.
Got to pull it up. Can't do it off the top of his head.
Yeah, right.
Actually, we should try and do it off the top of our head, shouldn't we? But I'm not.
Hollywood Park.
Yeah.
Go.
Do it in reverse order, Nick.
Event year by year, right? So I just got a cheat sheet. Should we try and do it without cheating? And then if I need to refer to. So we're going right back. So we'll start. Brittany, go on.
What, are we going backwards or forward? Here we go. Are you ready? No, I'll go.
Hollywood 84, 85 Catalan, 86, Tanzania, 87, Hollywood, 58, 89. Justin? 139. I don't know. 89. Yes, Justin was right. 90 Belmont, 91 Churchill, 92 Gulf Street, 93 Tanzania. 94, Churchill Lounge, 95 was Belmont Park, 96 was Woodbine, 97 was Hollywood, 98.
I have them if you want me to keep going.
98 was Gulfstream.
98 was Churchill Downs.
Churchill. 99 was Gulfstream. 2000 was Churchill again. 2001 was Belmont. 2002 was Arlington Park. 2003 was Santa Anita, my first one. 2004 was Lone Star Park. 2005 was Belmont. 2006 was 2007 was Monmouth. 2008 was Auckland for both Santa Anita. 2011 was Churchill. 12, 13, 14 Santa Anita. 15 was Keeneland. 16 was Santa Anita. 17 was Del Mar.
Yes.
Del Mar. 18
Yes.
was
Churchill Downs.
Churchill Downs.
Yeah.
Hey.
Santa Anita, and 20 is at Keeneland, 21 Del Mar, and 22 is at Keeneland, and 23, of course, everybody knows is going to be
Santa Anita.
at Finger Lakes.
Wow.
Mark, well done. It took a little bit longer.
Or is it Thistledown? I can't remember. It's one of the two. You told me earlier in the week, and I can't remember which one it was.
Oh my goodness.
We don't talk about future hosts like that.
I'm impressed, Nick.
I think people would have this question. If they don't, I do. What goes into picking a host site? How involved is that?
I mean, many, many things, and we try to do it years and years out. I think you look at venue, community, what sort of international shipping we can do, fan support. I mean, and again, like I try to go to as many Challenge Series races as I can at many different great racing spots, and it's very humbling how everybody wants to have a Breeders' Cup. And there's several different places that we're always looking at. I think as you see, there's several racetracks that are starting to make structural and improvements. And, I think anything's on the table in the future, and we look forward to it all.
The one question that comes up like every year, particularly from New York race fans, is when does the event go back to New York? Do you think it will happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think David O'Rourke, his team, Naira's fantastic. I talk to David routinely, and the great things are happening at Belmont. I know they've started doing some renovations with the hockey team, and I close contact with him about potential renovations to the track. And when they're there, we'd love to be back in New York. It's a great spot. There's so many great people involved in racing that are up there. Saratoga is one of my favorite spots to be, particularly in the late summer, early fall, and it's a fantastic city. Breeders' Cup has a small office up there. We're very connected to New York. Pre-COVID, I was up there every other month, and we would love for that to happen.
A small but perfectly formed office.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's chilly. Show off that drink, Mark.
I'm gonna see if I can. I never do a good job of actually. I need an overhead camera. Is what I need. Can you guys see?
We'll upgrade. That's beautiful.
You're getting green.
So there's a little. Yeah, I know, right? So what we've got here is a little star anise that we're using. Star anise is beautiful. Again, great fall spice. Some apple slices. Just rest that right on top, and that is the avant-garde. Delicious fall cocktail. Again, using bitters for complexity, but other than that, we're building off the same concepts that we've spoken about: sweet, sour, seasonal produce, great ingredients like apple cider. This is definitely a fall drink, but it's super easy sipping too. So you can have a couple of these and not feel like you're going to fall on the floor.
That is what we like.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Drew, there's been like the whole 6-month period has been up and down. It's been so uncertain, and I think everybody this week has responded incredibly well to your positivity. And I know you're saying it's a big team effort, but you have to lead from the front and exude that positivity about how the event's gonna unfold. And I can tell through the last hour and a half or so how excited you are about this year.
No, I'm pumped. I mean, the Breeders' Cup, yeah, the size and scope will be different, but it will definitely feature the best races from all over the world. And it is a must-see racing event. And I will say that, I mean, this obviously is my first year as the CEO, but I've been just so thankful for all the phone calls, the words of support. Last week was a decision no one wanted to make, but it was the right one. And to get the support that we did was really tremendous. And that gets us through it. And the racing community, it's very close-knit. We all talk all the time. We see each other in all parts of the world, and that's what's so special about our sport. I mean, once things clear up, it's going to even be better. But as we're getting through this, we're doing the best we can, and it's going to be great.
Drew, thank you for welcoming us into your home, for sharing some cocktails with us, sharing some stories about how you got to where you are, and of course handling all that business off the top of decisions that were tough, in the sense of disappointing, but also had to be made. We are so grateful for this show, for the Breeders' Cup as a whole, and we'll do our best to bring those spectators at home the true glory and excitement that is the Breeders' Cup. It's our Do you like it better being the World Series of horse racing, the Olympics of horse racing? What analogy do you like?
No, anytime I talk to a group that's not immersed in the horse racing culture, I say it's the perfect marriage between the Super Bowl and track and field for the Olympics. So it is the World Championships, but we have several divisions: long and short, dirt, turf, male, female, young and old. So it's the perfect marriage of the two, which, and again, all things are decided at the Breeders' Cup, and we'll figure out very shortly who the best horses are.
And
can't wait.
What everybody at home now realizes is that the random painting over your left shoulder that you dismissed at the beginning of the show is actually a grandmaster.
Yep.
And one day we'll realize many millions at public auction.
Yeah, you never know. So,
Drew, thanks so much for your time this evening. And let's march onwards and inexorably towards another successful Breeders' Cup, albeit in unusual circumstances. There's no better place than the cradle of the thoroughbred at Keeneland. And we're only a few weeks away. And between now and then, we will be with you, fingers crossed and God willing, every Thursday night. So,
cheers. Thanks for you all for